Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the Foxeer DigiSight V2 Nano. This is a SharkByte system camera as well as an analog camera. As you can see there, the DigiSight camera now comes with a much longer cable for your SharkByte connection. This is the previous cable. Of course, it's a nano camera, so your mounting's 14 millimeters by 14 millimeters. With all the cabling, it weighs nearly 7 grams. It does come with a control board to change camera settings when you're using analog, mounting screws and washers, an adapter for fitting larger mounting situations, and a sticker. So the first thing we're going to do is the light test, and as you can see from the sky there, I don't have full sun. I've got, I think the weatherman would call that partly cloudy. I kind of call it mostly cloudy if you look around. But we still have a fair bit of light, and it still does show you the responsiveness of the light test that I have done for quite a while. You can also see there that we've got the Foxeer OSD, so if you fly fixed wing or something of that nature and you need the camera itself to show you some information, it is available. I left it on in this case. So just a short light test. This section we're just kind of doing the flat ground look around so that you can slow this down and maybe study it a bit more. So, you know, it gives you the information. You're probably looking at my OSD. Yes, I am running the new OSD method. I forget what it's called now. It's like canvas view, I think, or something like that. Canvas mode in Betaflight, so that you have all the different elements on there. I've actually been running that for a while on my SharkByte setups. Was doing some testing with Fat Shark and Divi Math here a while back, and I've left it on there because I really like it. Here we go for a little flight around the neighborhood. Little moving picture. You can see there I've got this in a different machine. It's one I've named Apex Byte because it has Apex motors in it, I believe. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense to me. But just cruising around, you can see the sun is relatively low in the evening, and I wanted to show you this one mainly because you can see the effect that it has on the trees when the sun is fairly low. So you can diagnose that. I also have some comparisons, some side-by-side footage that you can see with V1. And then I'm going to move on to some settings that John Hall posted on the Rotor Riot group. I wanted to share that a little bit. I don't have a great eye for these things, so I try to give you a number of different views. I think the camera is pleasing to look at as it is, but you might not, and so you might want to see those John Hall settings. He went through and did some tweaking. Again, I'm not one to tweak cameras out. Pretty much I run every camera in my normal builds. I just run them at defaults. I don't get too caught up in that. It's probably due to my lack of sensitivity to light and shape and sharpness and things of that nature. So as we're doing this little flight and you need to slow it down, of course, the YouTube's got the little gear icon down there. You can slow it down frame by frame if you want to see more detail, maybe the leaves on the ground. And we actually got snow this morning, so nothing like a mid to late April snow here in the Midwest. Gotta love that. Weather's always changing. It's actually supposed to get up to 43 degrees tomorrow. And then it's supposed to turn right around and be 82 by Monday, so that might not be too far away. Depending upon when I get this video edited out. Kind of did some hovering around these flowers so you can try to pick up additional detail. I know my camera angle is a little high for hovering around the flowers. That's the way it goes, though. I tend to fly with a little bit more camera angle even when I'm just cruising. This is a screenshot of when I was making the adjustments according to the John Hall settings that he'd posted on Rotor Riot. I appreciate John doing this and posting it out there for the public and everyone to see. So it's always good to get another perspective. And then you'll get to see this flight here we got coming up. Of course, it's a different day. Sun's in a different position. And I don't know if it's specific to the settings, but I only noticed it on this setting. But you'll see an orange hue come across the lens. So I'm wondering if maybe, you know, the settings might work great for John and his environment, but I'm noticing, especially when I get towards, you kind of see it glaring off the lens there, the sun tends to hit it and cause that kind of orange flare. Didn't bother me in flight, but I did notice it when I was going through the DVR, and I thought, what is that? So I started comparing it to some other footage I had of this camera when I was doing other days. You know, I tend to do these things over multiple days because it might be cloudy, but yet I'll catch a 10-minute clearing for most of the clouds are gone. That's why I also did an evening time flight, give you another perspective of how it handles the sunset when it's a little bit lower. But to me, I didn't see this sort of orange flashing coming across the screen, or hue, whatever you want to call it. I didn't see it, but otherwise the setting looks pretty good. Just curious about why that only appeared in this particular flight with these particular settings. I did fly it on 2 different days with these settings. I did not notice it in the other day. So that makes me kind of lean to it must have been sun angle. I must have been hitting it just right on the lens, possibly, and I just wasn't on other days. As you can see, the grass is starting to green up. We're getting some leaves on the trees, so quads are going to start to be a little bit of a problem getting them out of the trees. Also, we have more than one red truck to look at in the neighborhood now. Red is one of those colors. I'm sure all the subscribers and people that visit the channel regularly hear my spiel all the time about red tends to be one of those colors that won't necessarily represent itself as true. I thought in this instance that the colors look pretty true, especially the reds, as far as how I view those reds. And I see those trucks pretty much every day when I step outside the house because they're always parked in the driveways. Let's take a look at some night footage, and you probably saw it there in the lower right. I switched the mode to night, and I had locked it in color. So this should give us the best representation that I can think of as far as this camera goes and doing some night viewing here. Much warmer night, actually. It was well before the snow and those other flights that you've already seen. But you can see it gets pretty dark. So I think if you wanted to use this camera in a nighttime situation, it would have to be in a pretty well lit lot. You can see how the lighting in the background, you can see the houses real well, but the dark areas where there aren't light, you can't really see those all too good. So I don't think it's a nighttime camera, at least as far as the SharkByte goes. And I did disable the canvas mode, or I disconnected from the camera, so to speak, in order to make the canvas mode go away in this particular view. That's something I always did. And because I tend to fly SharkByte in the house with my SharkByte whoops, I have 2 of them that I've built up. Better take it for a tour around the house. Again, some of you have probably seen the house in many different states over the years. Just kind of walking my typical path out in the openings where the people trails are, and then we'll go down the steps and take a look into the basement as well. So less natural light down in the basement. But I did notice that the LED lights, like there in the hallway, it does cause that bar, but at least it doesn't flash. I did set it to 60 hertz, so it seems to be the frequency that most of these lights are running at. As you can see now that we're down there in the basement, the LED lights aren't flashing or causing any sort of strobe effect. Just going around turning on the lights so we can do a comparison on, especially for those that have seen the house in other flight footages, this might be useful for you. This is just a quick side-by-side. It's not perfect. I've got a smudge, I think, on the left-hand side of the camera there. And you can see I'm panning around. I've got the camera actually turned in horizontal, so it's backwards. I've been playing with the settings. I know. But I want to give you an opportunity. I've only can record one at a time, so they're not exact. But, side-by-side, see the differences between the 2 different cameras as I just kind of pan around doing the flat ground work. Here's our analog. So you can run this both ways. You can do SharkByte or you can do analog. Just doing the flat ground work again is analog. That's pretty sharp contrast between what you'd see between the 2 systems. That's for certain. So this would be, if you wanted to transition, possibly one day you may be eyeballing the SharkByte system, or you maybe have a wing or multiple wings and you want to run one camera on analog and then swap the camera over to another one that might be running SharkByte, what have you. A number of different cases there, transitioning, maybe migrating at some point in time. And then we look into the garage. I want to do this mainly so, if you're flying into a dark space, maybe you're going into a barn or something like that, you get the idea of how it handles the light in the analog situation. Also helps with the straight lines of the garage, to be able to tell if there's a fishbowl or fish eye effect that you might be sensitive to and not want, or in some cases you might want. I think it's shocking to see the difference on the same camera between SharkByte and analog. That's one of the things that when I did the first camera, I kind of drew out. I don't know if I talked about it all that much, but it is a much different picture, and sometimes I think I forget, even though I'm flying multiple different systems depending upon any given day. So maybe those of you that might be out there flying analog only, might be looking at SharkByte and going, oh, I didn't know. Or if you're flying DJI, you might be making your own comparisons. Or if you're flying SharkByte and you've forgotten about analog yourself. Okay, here we're back to just stock settings. And I'm going to, right after this, I'm going to do the John Hall settings again, just so you can do a greater comparison. Matter of fact, I think what I'll do is I'll do the John Hall settings next to the stock settings. That'll be the next section of this video. And instead of doing the video full screen, you know, having seen them both full screen, I'm hopeful that maybe doing a side-by-side will give you a different view, a different point of comparison, to see if maybe there's some settings that you personally might tweak off of John's settings. So you get to see the difference in the settings because they are quite dramatic. I think he also noted that he was doing some editing in Premiere with the footage to make it change as well. Many of you may have seen his Facebook post. If I saved it or if I have it, I'll link it down in the video description below so you can see his video as well as the typed text that he put around the message, because that might be important for those of you wanting to investigate further on how he manipulates the video to look in the way he wants and give you your own ideas. I don't do, you know, color grading or any sort of special tuning. Mainly because that would be wrong, for one, because I'd be manipulating how the product looks to everybody who watches it. But I just have never investigated that. I don't have that knowledge or skill set really to make things look all that much different when it comes to post-processing. See, we've got a delivery person down in the neighborhood. I think that is delivering Amazon packages. Amazon seems to be hiring or renting various trucks. That particular truck, if you remember, the person who drives it really likes to listen to a super loud radio. One day he delivered a package up to the door when I was actually flying out front. And as he came walking over, you know, I had the goggles on, so I quickly came in and landed. And as he walked up, said, "Man, that truck's got a booming system in it." He's like, "Yeah, it's all right." It was kind of a funny moment between us. I don't think he got it. I mean, he's, you know, a lot younger than I am. So I used to listen to loud music too. Because you know, your ear turns old and you're kind of like, oh, turn that down. But it wasn't a nuisance or anything, not at least to me. I just thought it was funny because it's not something that you hear every day, is a booming delivery truck. It's usually the truck or the truck engine that's loud, not the sound system inside of it. All right, the battery's getting low. Let's go into that comparison between the stock footage and the John Hall footage. The John Hall footage I'll put on the right. The stock footage that we've already just watched, I'll put that on the left. And then we'll do a little cruise around the neighborhood, and this might be the best comparison points that you want to look at as far as this camera and what the possibilities are with the settings. I'm not going to go into the settings. The settings are the same on both cameras. So if you're curious, I've got a Foxeer DigiSight Nano 1 version that I'll link down in the video description if you want to go see the settings on the camera. Pretty much all stock. You can flip it. It's got a bunch of different settings. Well, not a bunch. It's got the typical settings that you would find for manipulating the colors, setting the modes. You can also use the right stick on the radio to change the modes. So as you see the clock in the bottom right, if you hold the right stick, middle, full right, it'll switch from the different modes it has, which are day, night, LED, I think is the last one. Yeah, I believe LED is the last one. Hopefully you've seen enough of the comparisons. You know, you can always slow these things down. I don't like to make super long camera view videos because I think people get bored. I know you need a moment to be able to digest what you see, and then you probably move on fairly quickly. So hopefully you've got enough footage. Back at the desk, I got a couple things that I'd like to show you. Okay, so the first thing, if you are wanting to switch the camera from SharkByte to analog or from analog to SharkByte, plug in your adapter, power up the camera. If it's in a quad or something, of course, it's connected to a SharkByte board of some sort. Can't even pick this thing up. So you've got it powered on. Let it power on. Let it get fully powered. You know, wait 5 to 10 seconds. And then after it's fully powered on, the 5 or 10 seconds, press and hold the left button on the control board and hold it in for 20 seconds. You know, count nice and even and slowly up to 20, or you can use a clock with a seconds on it or something of that nature, but 20 seconds, and let off, and then power off. Switch your connector, whichever way you're going from, whether it's SharkByte to analog or analog to SharkByte. Power it back up. You should have a picture. Also, If you find that this camera does not power on and you don't get the red and blue light on your board, I use mainly the Whoop boards. Here I've got the quad right out here. So I use mainly these Whoop boards. Matter of fact, that's all I have. I don't have the larger stack. There's an LED on one side or the other. It might be on this side, I forget now. But it's got a red and a blue LED. So red indicates the board is powered. Blue indicates that the camera is connected and powered. In one particular case, I can't claim it was random because, you know, I was doing different things with the camera. But at one point in time, I thought the camera was dead because the red light came on, but the blue light didn't. And what I did in that particular case was I did the whole switcheroo thing where I held down the button with it powered on for 20 seconds, repowered everything, then the blue light came back on and I had an image in my goggles. So if you find you're running one of these cameras and then all of a sudden the camera just doesn't work, don't blame necessarily the camera right away. Do the mode switching or analog to SharkByte mode switching with your control board first, just to double check. And you may want to try that more than once because there is a timing mechanism for how long you have to hold this down. Maybe you count too fast or something like that. Maybe you don't get it switched. Maybe if you power cycle it too quickly, it doesn't give it enough time to power down all the way either. So something else to check if you do have a camera that seems to be failing or not working, whether it's on analog or SharkByte, is give it a second time of trying to do the switcheroo, maybe 2 or 3 more. So tell me what you think. How are they developing? What's going on here? The camera specs as far as the hardware goes are all about the same as the first one. Matter of fact, as I went through them, again, I really didn't find anything that was different. The one difference that I do know this has is the mode switching on the right stick. I don't recall the version 1 having that. It may have, but I just noticed that in this particular camera that it was actually fairly functional to use. You just hold the stick middle right, and then it shows on screen that you're switching modes, and then you let off, and then it goes back to the counter, and then you hold it mid right again, and then it switches mode again, and it slows, and then it switches back to the counter. Around and around you go. As far as the voltage goes for analog, 4.5 volts to 20 volts, depending upon how you want to power it. Of course, with digital, it gets power through the cable, so no real choices there. The last thing I have is this is a low latency camera, a 4 millisecond latency. Latency method testing, I've done it. I know that others do it. I think it's really tough to do a test that is really reliable and accurate and can please the masses, so I tend not to do it. I have had cameras years ago where I could definitely feel the latency. I can certainly feel the latency when I fly DJI, although it's not something that stops me from ever flying DJI. So as far as latency goes, I'm sure some people notice it. I'm sure others don't. I'm sure there's some of us that don't pay it much attention. So let me know what you think of the camera, how it developed. We had that special section in there where you got to kind of view version 1, version 2. Maybe that was a point that you'd like to call out and what you saw. Different settings, contrast, brightness, sharpness, digital artifacts, anything that you may have noticed. I'm always interested in hear what you guys see when I show you these images because I don't necessarily see it. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the comment section way down below. I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching.